Okay, so today I want to show you guys a little bit of my process. There is a few features of the game that still need to be modeled, and today we're going to dive into that process. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first thing I do really is I find some inspiration. If this artist has some of the coolest sci-fi stuff. Corey Lynn Hubel. I hope that's how you say it. But his concept art is just prolific. I love it. Did some stuff with Halo, obviously. But I use this to really pick up on shapes and forms. I won't really copy anything here because this is his work and I don't want to copy it. But really what I'm looking for is just shapes and features that I think could help to sort of really define the universe. Like this photo. This has got so many cool shapes in it. So I think I might kind of be inspired by some of the shapes that are in here. And I'll be referring to this photo a couple times, but really I really don't want to recreate this. I just kind of want to be inspired by some of the geometry. And you'll see how that works out. All right, so let's jump into Maya. To kind of go off of what I was talking about last time, is I'm going to start out with some actual scale. Since this is a big room, I'm thinking maybe like 70 feet. Maybe like 50 feet. Let's start out with 50 feet just for now. Maya is in centimeters. So if you're doing things to scale, on my other screen, I have a feet to centimeter calculator. So let's go ahead and go into here and actually change this to scale. So 50 feet in centimeters is 1,524 centimeters. And 50 feet high is probably not necessarily what we're going for, but we'll do this for now. Oh, this clipping, that's pretty easily solved. So go into your outliner. And then here in your perspective camera, you just need to change some of the clipping plane stuff. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger in the near plane. And the far plane, we're going to make a lot bigger. I'm going to give it 2 zeros, 2 orders, or whatever the math term is for that. Now, as you can see, we're not having issues with our scale. So let's go ahead and make sure this is on top of the, I almost called it a build plate. That just goes to show the the 3D printing side. I'm just gonna take the origin, snap it to the bottom vertice, and now we're gonna snap this to the grid by holding X and middle mouse wheel. Ooh, it's big. All right, that's probably good enough for now. I know I'm going to need to take out this face because the hallway is going to enter in through here and then come back around. It's going to be a little bit of a switchback. So these rooms are going to be sort of switchbacks. So first I need to take this ceiling down. Let's do something like a tall ceiling would probably be like, what, 30 feet? That'd be a pretty tall ceiling. So I'm going to just make a regular cube. And this cube is going to kind of turn into my scaling thing. It's not really going to be in the scene, but I'm just going to use it to know my scales. So 30 feet is 914.4, but you know what? I'm going to just round down to 19.4. Or I mean, that number that I just typed in and hit enter. And we'll scale this a little bit because that's going to be hard to grab. Cool. That was pretty close. So something around there. Cool. The next thing I'm going to do for now is I'm going to detach this face. And that is extract. Oh man, last time on my live stream I kept saying extrude the pants and the shirt, and afterwards I watched it and I was like, oh no, that's not, it's extracting. That was silly. So I am correcting myself on this one. Faces, and let's reverse these two. That way they're facing the right direction, considering this is going to be interior. Okay, and I think also something I'm going to want to do is, I don't know if I want these exact corners like that, especially too since it's a double back and the flow of this room's going to be kind of like this, where they're coming in here and exiting here. I think I'm going to do something like this. Yeah. Something like that could work. We'll see. That might change as we go. Okay, so now let's make this the size of a human, or a average girl, which I think is about 5.5. I think that would probably be fair. And that's about 167 centimeters. So we'll just round to 168 centimeters. Cool. So looking at this scale, it's a pretty big room, but I think that could work for like a sci-fi type of thing. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, I know I'm gonna need basically this geometry size, and I know since it's the same, whatever I do here, I can just mirror over here, and I'll probably do the same for this, and then this will be its own unique wall panel. But for now, I'm going to take this face and I'm going to duplicate it because I know I want that same face. I've got the general layout of the room, so I'm going to duplicate this face. And this would be really handy too if the geometry of the interior space is very complicated and you want to make sure the panels fit very specifically to like a set path. Extruding, not extruding, there I go again. Extracting the faces gives you the basically, or duplicating. In this case I duplicated because I don't know, I might want that geometry at some point. So now this just becomes its own piece that's the same as this wall, which could prove to be useful if I mess this up, or this changes a bunch. I would still want this geometry there. A little less destructive. Okay, so let's see. I know that I really want to make sure it feels the right size according to this character. So I think what I'm going to do is start adding some edge loops. And I want it to kind of, a general shape that I've been using pretty consistently is this sort of like a 45-degree angle protrusion thing. And you'll see this, and it might not literally be 45 degrees, but it's this idea where I buckle out here, have this flat, and then I'll buckle this back out. So this sort of super simple shape right here has been a pretty consistent shape throughout the levels. And that's also something I think is important when you're doing these sort of world building things. You want to you don't want anything to go too far outside of the general shapes that you've been creating. So for now, we're going to start out with something very simple like this. I'm kind of looking over here to see, reference back that reference image, just so I can kind of make sure that I can get some of the shapes that I like, and that I'm seeing in there. And to basically, once you get this base thing, this base shape, you kind of just start going. I'm trying to think where I can add in geometry and where I can keep it flat. Because this is an environment, I really want to rely on textures. I don't want to rely too much on geometry, because then the scene just gets really heavy. So I'm kind of at this point just thinking very deliberately about where I'm going to put geometry and where I'm going to keep it flat and add sort of an illusion of geometry with things like normal maps. I do know that since it's mobile, I want to make sure that my bevels are really big, because the screen resolution is so much smaller. It's important that when you're doing mobile that you push your bevels a little bit further than you normally would. Let's see. Oop. And I'll kind of zoom out to see if that bevel is doing what I'm thinking it's supposed to do, which I think that's working pretty well. And I like working with faces first. That way I get the general shape before I start trying to add much depth. That way it's just a little bit easier to work with. Because I know if I want to make this a solid, I can just take these faces and extrude them and turn it into a solid. But for right now, I'm just working with planes, especially too since it is necessary to keep your geometry as low as possible. Just being very deliberate as to where I might want geometry and where I don't want geometry. Let's see. I think in here, what I might want to do is like add some pipes or something. So take this in. We'll take this pretty far back in because it's going to be like, they're going to run some pipes through here. Let's see. I think something like that could work. And we'll go ahead and bevel these again. Okay, now we'll pull back. Yeah, those bevels are working. I think that's a pretty good size. Especially too when we go out here, it's doing pretty well. I think that's gonna work. So now we'll get some pipes in there. And if you hit T when you've selected a primitive before you do much editing on it, you can change things like subdivision and all sorts of elements of the geometry before you start modeling on it. And I think I'm going to do something like 10 because I'm going to rotate it and delete half the faces on there because I'm not going to need them. holding J will snap that to maybe 45-degree rotation. I haven't really thought about that actually. So I get rid of these faces on the edge. I think it's much easier to just extrude edges than trying to mess with those faces all the time. With the way I'm designing this, I probably won't even need faces on the ends to close it. So I'm not too worried about that. And I usually, honestly, when I'm working with cylinders, I get rid of those. I don't really like working with those faces. I like working with edges for things like this. Makes it a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and nuzzle this in there. That way I can just double click. Maybe I'll use verts for now, just to make it a little easier. Pull this pipe across. Maybe there'll be something that'll come down and hold this pipe in place. So we'll do some edges. And we will extrude, give a little lip, pull it over so it's not completely 90 degrees. Then I hit G, right? Because I just want to do the last thing that I just did. Then I hit G again, because I know I want to extrude again. And so we'll go in and down just a little bit. Then I'll hit G and W, pull it over, and then I'm just going to do the same thing here. So G to get that extrude menu up quickly, pull over a little bit, G, W, pull that over, G, get that to mimic that same piece, G, W, and pull this over. I know at some point I'm going to need to rotate these edges. Here, I'm going to turn this on. Because in order for it to match up with this corner, these faces, for them to line up smoothly, we're going to have to rotate these edges. But I'm not too worried about that now. I'm just kind of thinking very generally what this sort of interior space is going to look like. And then we can do this. Shift delete this down. Maybe make it a little smaller. Or we can just take these verts, move them up, give us a little bit more space. Actually, I think I'm going to take these and move them down. Oops, grabbed something I didn't need. And pull this down, something like that. Cool. I think that's looking okay. And then to kind of show some of the stuff that I did last time, I go back into mesh display, soften edges. That way I can see if that amount of geometry on those cylinders gives me a pipe look, which it does. Of course, there's a little bit of beveling here or faceting here, but generally that looks pretty cylindrical. So I think that'll work for now. Cool. I'm trying to think, do I need much more geometry here? Because I think I can get a lot of the wall paneling in texture, and I don't really want to add geometry in there. I think what I might want to do though with geometry is add some of these like protrusion things. I'm going to take a cube. This might be a good way too to hide these edges. So same sort of deal, right? We want to get that similar form that we've been using, which is honestly just kind of like a standard sci-fi thing. I don't know why it works so well for sci-fi, but it's just like it's become this sort of form language, which I think is really interesting. So start with this. I might have to delete the backs once I actually design this out, but we'll get there. So I'm going to extrude this up because I know I'm going to want this lip. Actually, I could probably even do that. That way I get the bevel. Take this edge over. That's the bevel. Take this up. Do this again. Edge. Something like that. And then take this up. And really I'm just kind of trying to pull once again from the forms that we have going on here, to make it feel like it was designed by the same cyberspace architect. Maybe this time we'll do 2 edges. I hit F to line this up. That way it's the sort of origin rotation point of the camera. We'll bring this up again. Getting that bevel in there. And then do this. And we're going to double it this time. See how that looks. You know what? This can be the device or the piece of architecture that's holding these pipes there. I'm going to change the focal length of my perspective camera. That way I can see these shots a little wider. So we'll go to something like 20. Cool. That works. So this is one of those cases where it's nice to be able to duplicate those faces, because I don't want to redo that for this, but what I can do is just do something like this. Select all the faces that I want to duplicate, and it'll become a separate piece of geometry that I can form into this bottom pillar thing. Duplicate. So maybe we want this to be a little more like this so we can see those edges. Oops. There we go. So I'm going to bridge that. Where are you, bridge? There it is. Cool. So now this is one piece of geometry. This kind of acts as this thing that's going to connect. Do I even like that? Nope. That's part of designing is like, I don't know. That just wasn't doing it for me. So I got rid of it. No need. But I do know I want to bring this up here somehow. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull it all the way up here. I know that's kind of what I wanted to do, right? That's the general shape. So now we can go in and start adding some edge loops to get it closer to highlighting elements that I want to see. I liked those edges, so I don't want to get rid of them. And two, if this kind of goes into here, it looks as though maybe these edges on these pipes are holding or are used to kind of hold these. This is kind of like using those lips to hold the pipes in place or something like that. And so now we can go ahead and start doing some really, really rough edits to this geometry. Once again, to reiterate this shape that we've been playing a lot with, we're going to pull this in. Something like that. Let's see, how's that doing? I think that's working. I might take all these though. Pull this down. Cool. I think that is getting somewhere. That'll be mirrored on that side. And then I can probably use this in this corner, but we'll see how that goes later. So now I think this is probably as minimal geometry on this form as I can get, actually, besides taking out all these faces in the back. Oops. What am I doing? Okay. I don't think. I'll leave that face there at the top just for now, just in case we want to extrude up or something. This has given me some problems right here. I don't like how sharp that angle is. Let's try doing something like this. Nah. I think what I'm going to do is something like this. This might be getting a little too carried away with geometry, but we'll see. So I want this form, but I want to be able to have another piece of geometry to play with. So this is another one of those cases where I'm going to duplicate those faces. And then now I can treat this like I treated the wall as its own geometry to sort of get some of this form back. And let's do this. Take these faces. Not those faces, these faces. Whoa, okay. There we go. And let's extrude these. Get those back to flat. Let's make, oopsies. I'm going to make this that little handle a little smaller by hitting minus. I think I know how I can reduce that. Let's pull these in closer. And then delete it, because I don't need that face, it's hidden. And then I can take this edge and this edge and bring it up here. Geometry looks a little shady, but let's see. Does that get the shape that I want? No. Maybe I should try something a little different. Wow, that's crazy. Possibly, actually, because then this can be a light right there. I don't like it. Maybe it's a little too extreme. Let's do something like that. That feels better. Actually, you know what I could do? Just take this, make it so I know it's flat, and then rotate it to the angle. I think that's doing okay. Although this shape right here, it's that same thing. Let's take this edge, move it like this. Then we'll take these verts. There, that's working a little better. Nice. And to kind of get some of these forms back, we'll take this edge, or this face, move it down, and then this edge, and move that in. Now we get that sort of, that shape in there again. Cool, and now I'll want to do something similar here. So let's take this face, this face, this face, and that face. And we'll duplicate. Just make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to grab. Actually. Oopsies. Cool. And then let's bring it here. And then we can get that shape back. And then so we're just repeating this shape multiple times in different ways. Make it feel like it is cohesive yet unique. Cool. And then I like the idea of this becoming a light. That'll be fun. I think that if I were to do any more geometry on these, actually let's go ahead and do that. I think that these do need a very slight bevel. I think it's really only on these edges. I think we can get away with that bevel looks nice, that bevel looks nice. We'll see about this edge, but I definitely think they're going to need some bevels on this side. So there's a bunch of ways to do bevels. I'm not entirely sure what the best practice is for doing bevels. So, you know, I do understand that this might be cringeworthy to some super hard surface modelers, but really I'm just trying to think, how can I get a bevel with the least amount of geometry? All right, let's see. Let's turn off these guides. I'd say that actually gave me a pretty good bevel for mobile, so I know it's going to be pretty small. But what really counts is that light hitting. Actually, let's see. So let's create an area light. That's also safe. Okay. Super grainy right now, so that is what it is. Let's turn exposure up, and then let's zoom this out. Yeah, we're getting a nice little bevel there. If you hold shift and highlight an area, it'll just render that area, which is nice when you're trying to do things fast. Yeah, I think that bevel is going to totally work for mobile purposes. Cool. So we'll refer back to this rendering when we need to look at things, kind of estimate how the lights are going to work. So I think I could probably do a very similar method. This time I'm going to be a little bit more precise, rather than just guessing, making sure they're the same. We'll be a little more precise on this one. I think we started out with something like that. Move this forward and maybe down a little bit. I'll just move that face. That's probably why you don't exactly do it like this, but Because now this face needs to move down a little bit. Let's see in the overhang on this one, same thing. This probably needs to do this. That's not bad. That's good enough. That bevel might be looking a little big. Let's see. I think that's looking a little too round on that top piece. So let's go back in here. Bring them back. And out. Where'd you go, IPR? Did I close it? That's better. Let's see. Is it reading from far away? Yeah, I think that's a little better. I actually think I need to tighten these up too. Yeah, I like that better. That's a more comfortable bevel for me. I think it makes it still look like it could be plastic or metal, but still lets you read that edge, because that little bit of color on that edge really helps make it look less like so boxy. Cool. And so I'll need to do the same on this. Just looking at my IPR again. I think that's good. That bottom one can be a little more rounded out because it might be more like a rubber than a metal. Cool. And let's just make sure this edge up here, since we pulled it out, matches or at least intersects. Cool. So I think at this point that's about as much geometry as I want to put into this. That's pretty minimal. I think everywhere where there is an edge that turns, we have a fair amount of geometry for. Actually, I think. Oops. Oh man, I gotta go in there. Let's pull this out. Cool. And this, I think, I'm just taking this edge loop and move this one down to match that angle. This might be a little nitpicky, but So now we're going to look at our IPR again, just to see how we're doing in terms of shape and super basic lighting. Cool. I think that's coming across pretty well. So we'll stop that and just make a few edits to this to make sure that we're really going against that wall. Cool. And you know what I might do? Let's just do this. Let's hide a little bit of that edge. Cool. Now it looks like it's a little bit more set into the wall, and we can confirm this with our IPR. Now it looks less just jammed in there. It looks like it's really integrated into that wall. And that gives us a nice highlight there too, which I am enjoying. Let's zoom out a little bit. See from this side. Oh, we need to get this. I don't know. Maybe. That's really just kind of shoving it in there. But you know what? I think that might work for now. Cool. I think, let me hold up my phone. Yeah, so this is pretty close to the size of a phone screen. So I'm looking at it in almost like a one-to-one fashion. Cool. I think that's reading pretty well. Nice. Cool. So at this point, I think I'm ready to start duplicating things, grouping things. So why don't I go ahead and do some of that? We've been modeling and going crazy. Now it's time for a little bit of cleanup. So right now I'm going through this geometry, centering pivots, deleting history, really just trying to do a little bit of cleanup at this point, because we've gone crazy, did a bunch of modeling, so now we got to pull it back a little bit. So I'm going to look over at my outliner, and as you can see, like, it looks clean right now, but it's a mess. We've got these transforms nested in it, like, you know, there's geometry parented to these transforms, and that's not going to work for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out all this geometry, get it out of these. We'll go back and actually name this stuff, but for right now, I'm just getting it out of these parents. And this happens when we do the extract and duplicate. It creates two pieces of geometry because you just duplicated some faces. And in order to handle that operation, I think it just parents both of the geometries to a transform or something like that, which gets super weird if you try to rotate them. If it's parented, like, let's see if it'll distort. It doesn't that time, but sometimes if things are parented to something else and you try to rotate something within a parent, it distorts the actual geometry. So now I think I can go to where is it? Delete by type. Delete by all type history. Cool. Oh wait, what? Why are these still alive? Well, let's just, I guess maybe G, 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 G. Well, if something goes green, we know we didn't delete history. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right, so now it's time to start naming things. This will help us later when we're in Unity or something and we need to know the geometry type. I don't need these to be separate. I'm just going to merge them together. Delete history because I don't want that transform again. And we're going to name these pipes, top, and then geo, just so we know that it is geometry. I think these two can be the same piece of geometry. So do that. Gonna name this column. Excuse my horrible spelling. Oh man. Column panel geo. Column main geo, and let's group these. So Control G. We're going to name this group column instead of geo, GRP group. That way we know it's a group. We'll name this main, or we'll do wall main geo. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is the ceiling. Honestly, we don't even need this right now. We'll figure something else out to do with that ceiling. And to it, I don't think it had the geometry, but whatever. We'll get to that later. Let's see, what else do we have? Cube. We're gonna do scaling ref geo. Maybe we'll even, yeah, scaling ref. Outer, let's just call it room wall ref, because I doubt we're even going to keep that geometry. That's just there so I have panels to duplicate from. That way I can keep the layout. Okay, so I think that this is to the point where at least we're kind of organized. We've got things named, got things grouped. So the next thing I want to do is take this and I wonder, that would be nice if this is the same size as this, but it looks a little bigger. So for this, I'm going to take these faces. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to do this. Edge. Oops. Take this edge. I'm going to go into top view so I can see exactly what I'm doing. Turn on these edges. This is probably going to be a little bit of a guess, but hopefully it won't be too much of a guess. And then we're going to extrude these this way. And then G. There. And now when we mirror this, we should get this exact. Hopefully this doesn't look too weird. Nope, I think that works. This angle, I think, is throwing me off. There we go. That feels better. Cool. That works. Now we can do the same for these pipes. Since it, I don't remember. I didn't. Oh, that was for that edge panel that we didn't keep. So do this, get these edges. And this is another reason why I deleted those faces in the beginning, because this with those faces would have been obnoxious. But with edges, it's a lot easier, I think. I don't like that angle. We'll fix that, but let's do the pipes for now. So we're going to extrude. Spacebar, by the way, is what gets you to these top views. And I'm actually also going to do this. That way I can see the wireframe, so they should line up pretty well. Hit G again, W. Now we can just go straight over here. Flatten those out. Cool. Sweet. So those pipes carry over. We're going to have to do something in this middle, right? Because I feel like there's got to be something going on there. We'll dive into that a little later. But now, for at this point, let's go ahead and do this. What we can do, I don't remember if I did that. So we go into this and mirror. Ching. Looks a little funky at first, but you need to figure out what axis you're mirroring on. And I was mirroring on the Z. That looks good. So W, once again. Freeze transforms, delete history just in case, so that mirror doesn't do anything tricky. And we'll go ahead and mirror these pipes as well. Same thing, we know we're on the Z axis now. Perfect. W. Cool. All right, so now those pipes are there. We're getting some of that symmetry back. Now let's do the same with these. So go into here, mirror, Z, perfect, W, freeze those transforms, mirror, Z, just W, pivot, center transforms, la-da-da. Hey, there we go, guys. That's looking pretty cool. And let's go ahead and look at our IPR too, just to make sure it's looking like what we want it to look like. Actually, let's save too, just to make sure. We'll do an increment and save as well. Okay, so where are you, IPR? There it is. Oh, I messed up the size. I'm going to hold my phone up again. It's around there, maybe a little smaller, but for now, we're just going to say that that's the size of the phone. Cool. That's looking nice. It's looking nice. Cool. So that's a good start. And I think for now, we're going to stop here. We'll stop here and we'll pick up again. We're going to do some sort of feature in the center. We're going to also add a ceiling and also figure out some sort of transition from the edge of the wall to the floor. I think that's going to need something. Yeah, and so we'll pick up in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.